Alright guys, what's going on? It's DJ Krios here, and we are doing a long-awaited tutorial update for the No Man's Sky Blender add-on by Charlie Murphy. Not Charlie Murphy, but that's so funny. Charlie Banks. That's really funny. So what I'm going to suggest to you before you even start with this video, let me land real quick. Before you even start this video, you need to go over, if you haven't done this already, and looked up these items, you're going to need the No Man's Sky save editor, which is at github.com, goatfungus, No Man's Sky save editor. I will put a link in the description. Go check that out first. I would say maybe watch some videos on it, open it up, and kind of look around and get familiar with things. Don't go crazy changing a whole bunch of stuff that you don't know about in there. We will get to that later. When I open it up, I'll kind of give you some warnings of what not to mess with and how to back up your saves in case you do. So that is going to be something that you need first. And the second thing you're going to need to go do is go to Charlie Banks's Nexus Mods, No Man's Sky mods. His name in here, you can see his name here is Charlie Banks, and his handle is DJ Monkley. There it is. And basically, if you just Google No Man's Sky Blender add-on, it's going to bring you here anyway. So I suggest before you even start with me, you need to go watch these videos a few times, probably, just so you can get it. Now, these older videos are just going to show you how to install it, and you're going to, these videos are kind of backwards. Don't start with this one first. This is going to be the new one. He's going to show you a little bit about the UI and things like that, and some of the new tools and everything that are going to be in there. But I would suggest kind of maybe skim over these old ones, especially the installation thingy right here, and even the you're still going to learn stuff too, because basically what the UI does is change this over to the other side, and it changes a few buttons, but it's basically still the same. It just like you have to get used to it. So watch these videos. I'd suggest watching them twice and do some kind of small kind of build or something. So I'll put both of these links into the description, and go do that. Spend a day or two. Take your time with this. You're not going to be some kind of a magician artist overnight. This took me at least 3 months to probably get familiar with and comfortable with, and finding all these things out. I'm going to help you fast track that and teach you some tips and tricks that I learned along the way to make a better build. So with that being said, those links will be in the description, and let's get out of here and go check out some things. All right, so I am landing on the planet. We're going to start a new base and add a couple of different items, because I want to show you how some things can end up looking like in Blender if those model pieces are not in Blender, which Blender is open source. If you know how to add those models out of the game, Charlie would probably be thankful for having that help. I'm just looking for something flat, real quick. We're going to lay down a base. All right, so let's go in here, lay down a base real quick. Charlie Banks is really cool that he's done this, and I think that's awesome that he's has this add-on. So definitely go give him a shout out and some thanks. I'm also probably going to be giving some presets away, so maybe I'll have that uploaded to some Google Drive and be able to put that link in the description too. So we're going to call this Demo Base 1. Every time my mic is on, someone rings my phone. Let's turn that off. All right, let's get out of here. I'm trying to make this video not super long, and it's going to be a long video, so just be prepared for that, okay? And let's go ahead and start adding some items here. I just want to add some of the newer items. They're going to... Oh my goodness. hell away from me. I'm in creative, so it doesn't matter. I forgot. I got scared there for a minute. We're going to add some of these newer items because they're not going to be in Blender. So we're going to add this guy here. We're going to add a little tree. We're going to add some of these guys. We're going to do something cool with this. Oh, we're going to do something cool with this right here. I like that guy. And we can probably see... I don't know if we're going to bounce back and forth and things like that. I don't really feel like doing a whole bunch of editing, so I am going to get to... So we have a withering bush and this thing here. And I'll show you some other things. We're actually going to get rid of this here. We'll get rid of that there, and we're just going to put a couple things in here because you have to have a certain amount just to be able to save. So I'm just going to throw some things up. Doesn't really matter to me. Alright, that should be enough to save, I think. That was my only concern. Alright, it says upload. Alright. So now we have a restore point saved. I'm just going to back out of the game. I'm going to quit the desktop. Now, I like to keep things organized with modding and doing my No Man's Sky save editor. I have things down here. Here's a shortcut to my mods, which just went up on my other screen. So I got my game data, PC banks, mod folder, boom. A lot of stuff by Red Moss and things like that. So we're not getting into that right now. The one that we're concerned with is the No Man's Sky save editor that I had you go study and download. So the jar file is right here. This is the one that you're going to want to open up. The rest of this is kind of your backups and whatever else is added in there for whatever purposes they need them for. All right, so in here, we have our game slot. So this is going to be your 5 different slots that you get in the game to save, and they will always be in order, not like No Man's Sky, which always puts the last one that you have messed with first, which can get very confusing because they don't have names. You got to go by times. You can clone these things over, and you'll have the same times, and you just get confused. Mine do. If I open up the game, when we do, you'll see that some of mine are like that. So I was in creative, so we're going to open up the creative save. And that's going to pop up here. Below this is a backup. Now here's all the backups. Every time you save and do something different in the game, it's going to give you a backup. If you ever mess up, make a stray mark, or the game gets corrupted, which I've only had that once happen to me. And I do a lot of experimenting and messing around. So this is where you go and can check some things out. I think if you click one of these, it'll come up here and it'll give you a date. You can always go back to the Save 3 HG, which is going to be the current one that you have. So if I pick this one, it's going to give me a date, okay? And I can go back up and hit my other one. So here, all right. So we are in creative. We're on my one. So this is where you go to add some things. Right-clicking and add for items that you want. You can change any of these numbers over here, multi-tools, you can generate seeds. You can't put these seeds in from like a site though. I've tried that, unless it's changed. But anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here for Blender. Blender is going to be using a JSON file that's in here. So if you want to get to that, you're going to come up to Edit right here. All right, so Edit into the JSON file. Now we're going to be looking for the base that I just put down in my JSON file. So that is going to be in this top part. I would suggest, if you don't know anything about coding or anything about this stuff, don't mess with this shit. You know, open up player state data. This is where you're going to be looking for your persistent player base files. So we're going to open this, and we're going to, don't mess with any of this. Just scroll down. We're going to scroll down, and I just scroll down. You see how all these writings come out very far? I scroll down until it slims down. And when it slims down, persistent player bases is going to be there. This tab right here will be about right in the middle lower part of the file tree. So persistent player bases. Now I have 11 bases that I've built in this save here. The last one that you have done should be the last one on here. Okay, so when I click this, as you see, all the new information came over here. Now, the way to tell if it's right or not, you hit Control A to highlight everything, and it takes the tab all the way down to the bottom automatically. We can see my name here, DJ Krios, and we can see the name right here of the bass. It says Demo Bass 1, and that is exactly what we're looking for. So, Control A highlights everything, Control C copies everything. I suggest if you don't know keyboard shortcuts for PC, like I said before, it's your three that you're going to be mainly using here is Control A to highlight everything, Control C to copy everything, and then later on when we go when we paste everything and stuff like that, it's going to be Control V to paste. Now, when you're in here and you hit Control A and you think that you maybe hit Q or S or something like that, let's go ahead and just mess up, okay? Let's go ahead and go back to 10. Let's go to 11. I'm going to hit Control. Oh, I hit something else. I messed something up. Let's not hit anything anymore. Let's not go any further. Let's go over here and hit, we'll go back to 10. Nope, I didn't do it. All right, so I'm in here. Let's say S, 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 and I hit Control A, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I hit something wrong. Go back over here and hit 10. It's going to say that the file has changed. Do you want to apply these changes? Say no, I messed up. This is going to happen. I do it all the time because I'm cocky and I'm trying to go quick. So Control A, we're going to highlight everything. Control C, copy everything. Now we're cool with that. Now we're going to open up Blender. Now, Charlie Banks has kind of walked everybody through on this. I had actually just erased my Blender and restarted everything. So you should have already installed your add-on for No Man's Sky, and he kind of like goes through on how to change the UI to make it look better for you. But I am not. I've erased my settings and everything else like that too. So what we're going to need to do is going to edit here. We're going to go into preferences. All right. We're going to be looking for a No Man's Sky engine, I think. I think it's going to start with the word engine. Engine for No Man's Sky. Game engine, No Man's Sky base builder. We're going to click on this, okay? And then we're just going to back out. Well, let's go ahead and save preferences on this, okay? So because we want this as our preferences. Now, there's some other things we can get into later. I don't think that I'm going to get into them now about maybe optimizing Blender for rendering purposes and everything like that, but we're just going to save that right now. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'd also like to add to you that, Blender is very hard on GPU and CPU power. So if you have a slower PC, this is going to take forever for you to load up bigger bases and rendering things. So a very strong PC is highly suggested by me, or you're going to need some patience for when these things are loading up. So we're looking at this thing, okay? We got Blender here. We don't see where No Man's Sky is at. Where is it at? I mean, the whole UI used to be over here, and now it's over here, and it's changed, and it looks confusing, and I can't say that I like it better. I liked the old one better. There are some different tools in here that kind of make it kind of cool, but not for me anyway. So, No Man's Sky is going to be over here. We're going to open up this tab, and we're going to click No Man's Sky. Now, we've already hit Control back over here on the file. We hit Control A and Control C to copy all that text that was in that file folder. And now we want to import that into Blender. So at the top of this UI here in No Man's Sky Base Builders that we just opened up that tab, which is hidden. So a lot of people have asked me, where is it at? So there's this little tab over here. Open it up, hit No Man's Sky. You should see all this stuff here. Now we're going to go ahead and hit import. All right. Here we are. We're down here where it says King. I'm missing some items here. I don't know why, because I erased my preferences. So there is something that I'm definitely missing here. I don't know how to get it. There should be a a tab down here that says object mode that I'm not seeing. So let me see if in here if I can go. No. All right, so I'm missing a very important tool. Actually, a couple very important tools. Like I said, I'm trying to go through. It's been a long time since I've done this, so we're kind of going through this together, and I'm confused over here about where I get my object file here. And I'm a little upset about this. But you guys, I needed to teach people this, so I'm a little distraught about where all this stuff is going to be. Yeah, objects. All right, well, we have an object file up here now, but it used to be, I mean, I had the same UI and it was right down here. Also, there's a, can I move this? Object mode, view. I am missing a view down here as well. And that's going to be very, very important for what we're doing in this here. Let me click on something. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit confused of what's happened to my UI. I did hit a revert back to how it is saved. So down here, there should be, oh, there it is. It's at the top now. I don't know why everything is at the top. Right here. Here is your global. All right, so everything that was down here, but I had it down here, I don't know how I did that before. It is at the top now. I got scared there for a moment, guys. I'm not going to lie to you because I wanted to revert everything back to the way it was, so I open up Blender the way you guys are going to open up Blender. So this is very important right here. So global means that when you spin things, you see how it's got the little turning things. That means it's going to turn globally along this axis right here. And you can see that our little block is not lined up with this axis. So if we start rotating this, it's going to rotate it this way, and it's going to be on a bias compared to where this is at. Unless you start something with this block right here, then it's not going to turn correctly for in orientation to itself. All right, so let's go over some things and what the tools are and how things move really quick. Basically, I've got this box right here. Let's go ahead and pull it up. Another thing that you need to do, let's start off this first really quick. Okay, when you're editing in Blender, the base cannot be edited. The base always sits where it is sit. That is not something that you can change. You cannot move the base computer. And if you highlight the base computer with anything else, it's not going to give you any options to move anything. Over here on the right-hand side, it's usually at the top, but it's not always at the top. You want to turn off this little eyeball. All right, so over here you got these little eyeballs, and if you don't want to be messing with something in Blender, it is the best thing to turn this eyeball off. Turn it off, and then you cannot manipulate that while you're in Blender. That is one big secret. I think that's one thing I see that a lot of people probably have problems with is, and if you do something and you edit that while you're in Blender and you go back to your base computer will be gone and you will not be able to upload it or do anything with it. Basically, you just ruined your base. So one big super secret right there is turning that base flag off. You can't do anything with it, and if you highlight it, you'll mess up the whole rest of your project and not be able to do anything. Or if you delete it or try to do anything else with it, when you go back into the game, it's pretty much game over for that base. Trust me, I've done it a few times, and I still do it by accident every once in a while because I forget to turn the eyeball off. All right, now with that being said, how do you move things in here? The old UI was pretty, you grab things and you know, when you first grab anything, you're in cursor mode over here. So this is just move, which is kind of crazy. I guess if you want to, I guess it's more fine-tuned so you can handle things a little bit better in Blender, but it's a little annoying when you're using No Man's Sky add-on for this. So, all right. So we have cursor over here. So sometimes if you don't want all this stuff in the way, you just want to actually select an item. Well, that's the cursor. You have selection here, a select box. You have your cursor, which is you're not going to be using that. We have move, which is going to give you the XYZ axis movement possibilities, and that's cool. Let's go over and click this too. All right, so when I'm moving things, we have our XYZ. Over here, if you click this little box right here, you can see your location within the your vector location within everything. You got your XYZs. I think it is in here too. Nope, it's not. It's not positioning over here. So let's go back into this. I'm gonna bring our No Man's Sky up. I like to pull this out. I like to have this out a little bit too for my setup. And then I know I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm trying to think of what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and I didn't script this at all. So we're going to, I didn't know how this was going to be because I haven't opened this up for a while. So we're learning how to reset up our Blender together. I pulled this down. I had to look for these things here because my tools were gone, but they're up at the top. I still would like them at the bottom, but that's where they've been. But I'll get used to this, and if that's the way it is, no problem. As long as they're there, I'm not scared. We hit the tab, we pulled this out, we pushed this down because we're not using we're not even going to be using the transposed port down here for play and stop and things like that. We're not doing that. We're not using Blender for that. So I like this setup right here. This is kind of how I like it. And we can go into File right here and Defaults, and we can save Startup File. Not with all this stuff in it, but before you do anything, open up your Blender just like I did, but not within a project. Make sure that your No Man's Sky tab is there. Pull it out. Probably hit this guy right over here for your XYZ locations, and then go into File and Defaults and save Startup File. That way, every time you open up Blender, you're not going to have to go find No Man's Sky and pull this UI out and push this one down. It's going to start up the way you want it for No Man's Sky. That's how I do it anyway. Charlie suggests some other things with making a layout up here and stuff like that. I never did that because I don't use Blender for a lot of other things. They do. So anyway, with that being said, we're going to go back to our movements here. We talked about the XYZ location here, and you can see the movement over there, okay? And that's very important for later on. Like, so you want to get exact angles. We can come in here and type 025 and hit enter. Things like that. We can move things over here within there. So 44.65. I don't know where that moved it to. It's way out there. Also in here, your keyboard shortcuts are the same as like on PC. So you make a mistake, you hit Control Z, bam, it goes right back to where it was. These little guys, when you hit the save button before, these little guys don't need to be in there. This is for lighting stuff in Blender. We don't use that. It's not going to transfer over into No Man's Sky. I know I'm all over the place. Bear with me. Write some stuff down. You're probably going to watch this video a couple times, maybe. It's very confusing. All right, XYZ, we covered that. If we want to move it in an XYZ fashion, then this is your tab over here on the left-hand side. Now, if we want to rotate this, the tab underneath this over here on the left-hand side is our rotation tab. Now we can see our rotation. All right, so we're rotating. Oh, I just grabbed it on its axis. So I'm going to make sure you grab red. So red is going to be your X. Okay, blue, that is your Z. Green. Okay, so another thing I want to point out, it depends on what kind of mouse you have. I have a mouse with a center button and back and forth buttons and stuff like that, but your center button is going to be very important. If your mouse does not have a center button on the cogwheel, it's going to be confusing. The way I'm scrolling and moving this thing around like this is by me hitting that center wheel on my mouse. This gives you different views. Views based off of the center point being right where the base flag was, right here. That's where we're rotating from always. Now we can change that too by hitting shift while we hit the center button in here. So if I say we have a big project and I got things way over here and I really want to, let's go ahead and grab them. I'll teach you how to grab things later. I just want to show you guys about moving things around like that. So we have something way over here, and I want to get, it could be way further over there. So, you know, as I'm rotating things around, I can't really get in there. Anyway, it's a bad example of what I'm doing here. But say there's something like in a building or something you want to fine tune and get inside of something when you messed up and add some things. You can hit shift while you're hitting the center button and you slide it over. Now your pivot point has been moved over from the center pivot point. So we're going to move that back over and get it back to close to where it was. Okay, so center button on the mouse is going to rotate everything so you can look at everything. And then shift center button is going to shift the pivot point around. Okay? Hope that makes sense. You have to play around with things and watch things again. And I had it, this, like I said, this took me 3 months, but I self-taught myself. I'm trying to help you guys fast track to get things better so I can see like crazy artworks that are inside of your guys' heads. All right. All right. So we moved some things. We were talking about rotate here. Okay, so here we are. We've discussed of which green, red, and blue were. You can always look over on the right to see your X, Y, Z's. And here we go. Let's go ahead and let's pivot this thing this way. Now, we're going to be turning this. It's still turning. See how I'm pivoting? And it's going from axis from one corner to the other. It is pivoting things on the global settings right here, along the global lines. Sometimes we don't want that. What if we're building and you lay down your base and it's not lined up with this? Because we don't get to see the terrain in there. Remember when I set things down on that flat piece? We don't get to see the world. I've got mountains off over here and mountains and a big drop off over here. You can't see it. Another trick would be, like, if you need to see what the terrain on the ground is, before you jump into Blender, lay a bunch of light bulbs down all over the place. That way you'll get a map of like where the hills are at, and you can get a little exact of where the terrain is at. You can map the terrain by putting pieces down. Not big pieces because they fuck up the terrain, but you need to put like light bulbs down so you can see everything. Now back to saying our access points and where we're tilting at. How do we change that? So what if we want to go local and change it within itself? You know, say we have these. We're going to grab these over here really quick, and we want to rotate these guys not on that axis because I don't want it to spin like that. That's not the way I want it to spin. So what you're going to do, instead of making this spin along these red and green lines, we can come up here. This is a tricky sauce. This is very important. We go to local. See how local made it to go front and back and side to side along the square? Now we can turn things locally on their axes. So, and you can see that I told you that I wanted to lay plants down in the beginning because they were not parts that were added into Blender yet, and they are showing up as boxes. These are actually plants. This is the toxic plant, and this is the red plant. And what is this guy? It's just a cube. We're going to get rid of that guy. I'm going to make something at the end with these guys just to be cool. So I want to like throw these way out of the way. Oh, yeah, see? I went to go move it, and I'm moving on the wrong axis. I'm not moving globally, and they're moving separately because this axis down, this one here, is axis is going to take off this way, and this one here is axis is going to take off that way. So I forgot to change local back to global because I want to move these things off over there. Okay, so that brings me to like, so you make a mistake. We had it on local, and I went to go move it, and it went all this way. Before you let go of that mouse click, just hit the right click. Right-clicking it will always take it back to where it was. So be careful when you're doing things. Don't just go, oh, you know, and there it is. You also have Control-Z. It'll bring it back. But I do this all the time. I forget to change it from local to global, and I make mistakes all the time. So I'm very, I don't get trigger happy in here. Before you let go of that left click button on your mouse, make sure that that's what you want and where it's at. And if you don't want it, just hit the right click on there and it will go back. And if you've already dedicated yourself to pulling the trigger, you have Control-Z. All right. So that being said, those are those plants over there. They're not represented in the game by parts, so they are going to be represented by boxes. Here are just some boxes that I put down just to, there are cubes in the game. They're represented properly. We're not going to be using those, except for to show you. Another shortcut on here, so you see me putting the circle and I highlight things. And then I right click to take it off. This circle button is C. That's properly shortcutted for C for circle, I guess. It's to select all and everything. So I can select everything and move things around. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. I just want to, as I'm doing things, I want to tell you guys what I'm doing so you understand. We're just going to go ahead and hit delete. I've circled them all. I gathered them all. I want to delete them. Now, sometimes I want to know where my base flag is at, and I want to actually snap something that's actually to the grid, especially for building something cool. So we are going to bring our base flag back in. We're going to zoom in on it. I'm going to hit Shift and the middle button to get back over to the way I want to see it. And we are going to go into over here. Now, he's kind of gone into the UI for No Man's Sky. You've seen that we hit import to import our files that we had copied from the No Man's Sky save editor. And when we're done with everything and we liked everything and we want to put that back in, we will be hitting export. Now, we'll get through that later. Down below that, it's going to give you the base name. So remember, we called this demo base 1 and the galactic address. So I don't usually look at that, so I close it. Tools can be handy sometimes for snapping and stuff like that. We're going to get into that too here in a little bit, but we're not touching that right now. I don't really use the duplicate along a curve. Again, I really don't know what the hell that does. I have other ways of manipulating things within the UI here. Snap is a big tool that I use a lot, and previous and next are going to change where the pieces are, where they either sit on the object or where it's going to be going next. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Color, that should be self-explanatory. You get to choose wood, stone, concrete. I don't see metal option in there, but I guess rust is metal, so duh. I don't really mess with that too much, not in the beginning anyway. Power and logic, I'm going to tell you right now, I hate power and logic in the game. I absolutely hate it. It's a nightmare, and I'll show you why later, because the pieces actually count as many pieces, because first of all, there's an in and an out in a power line. So that's 2 pieces right there, and then the actual power line. And since the power lines are scalable, they are complicated and big, and they will ruin bases, especially if you want to go big. And we didn't really ask for power lines, and I don't like the way they did it. I mean, we're in a future setting. I'm not going to start complaining about the game and my reasons why it upsets me. But the power options really kind of mess the game up, I think. And we'll get into those tests in that a little bit more. I usually don't mess with this because they really add a lot of complexity, and you will reach your limits in the game by using a lot of power stuff. Just an example, let's just hit a switch box here. A switch box is very complicated. We have it highlighted down here. It's got I'm not going to show you right now anyway. But anyway, it's complicated. Down here, we have some information. So we got vertices, we got faces, and we have objects. I have 3 objects in the game, right? I've got those things that I put off way over here that we're going to save for later, and we have the base flag. And just those 3 items that we have in the game right now, and you can see that right over here. We can see at the top right our items again too that are in there. But down here, it's going to tell you how complicated things get. So those 3 items have got us to 3,048 vertices and faces. So that's how complex these things are. But this is probably where most of them come from. See, every single, that's a line, that's a vertice. That's a line, that's a vertice. That's a line, that's a vertice. So the more complicated your object is in the game, or the object looks and how many angles and everything it has, the more complicated it is for the game to render, and it's just a complicated object. It's easy to make a square or a triangle or something like that. And as you can see, this is made up of a bunch of little squares and then lines and things like that. So it's a complicated item. The more complicated the item that you're using, then it transfers over to the game. So you use a lot of complicated items, then you're going to reach a base max render limit anyway quicker. All right, back to what we were doing. So that's power and logic. I'm closing that out for now. We're not going to mess with that. Here's your build, and here's parts. That's what we're going for right now. And you open this up. It's been... I like to slide this in and out depending on what I want to look at. So we're going to look at things and we can see all of our parts here. I'm not going to explain all this crap for you. It's basically kind of categorized for you. Just come in here and play with things and whatever else. Right now, we're just going to go into some concrete floors. I'm going to lay a concrete floor down. I'm going to highlight this. So when I hit concrete floor, it's going to snap to this right here. Now that I've done that, go back over to your base flag because we do not want to mess with a base flag. I told you before, that will mess up your whole project. Turn the eyeball off. All right, so we got this floor here. Well, what happens if we click floor again? It's going to put it down here. And that brings me back to our tools up here. Underneath the snap button, we have next, previous, and we can, if we hit next, we can choose which way it is going to go and add. So if I want to go up and keep on adding concrete floors, now when I do it, it's going to do this. All right. While we're talking about tools really quick, I want to explain what the source means. So we're going to highlight this piece down here because that's where I want it to snap to. That's where it's going to snap to originally. Whatever you have highlighted, it's going to snap the piece that you hit down here to it. So we're going to go into, I want a room, main room. We're going to grab a buyer room, okay? And there should be a door or something in here, a corridor, main room, ladder, window, main room, sphere. Maybe doors are indoors, right? Doors and windows. A door, futuristic. Okay, so I've got this highlighted. It doesn't have any doors on it, so I'm going to hit door. This is just to explain what this source button below the snap is. So target changed where the piece snapped to and which way it was going and where it was going to be added next. Let's go ahead and hit a mechanical door. It added a door here, but what if I wanted a door here or a door there or a door there? Doors need to be snapped correctly to these pieces. You're not going to manually go in here and move this door around to where you want it. So you could try to line them up, but they have to be lined up properly to actually function as a door. So if you wanted this door on any other of the entrances to this biodome, you're going to come over here to the right underneath snap and hit this source next and previous, which is not doing it for some reason. Is it because I moved it? All right, so I can't, up here, I can go back to cursor or select. It's going to take everything out of my way. And I can actually hit that piece. And now it should do it? Maybe not. I'm not sure why that is doing it like that. So we're going to learn together. I don't usually do this again. So again, I don't know why it's doing that, but let's do this again one more time because I did move it. So we're getting way off track here. It's a long video. I apologize, guys. I feel like we haven't gone very far, but these are the basics and the foundation of what you're learning is super important before you get anywhere. Okay, so let's go back up to doors. Mechanical, cube, window, square, a futuristic door. All right, it added it there, and I want to hit next. No? Oh, the next button did it there too. So I thought it was source for some reason, but that seems to do it too. I must have forgot what the other purpose for source was. So, And if I remember what I did to that to do it, I'll explain that later. I just wasted some time. So obviously, as good as I am, I don't know the program as well. It's still kind of new, and I learn something new every time I take on a big project, and I usually learn something new. So we're adding these things. Here we go. We got this big long line of stuff here, and this is when I hit Shift and the middle button to get me a better view of this piece, and the center button to spin things around. Let's just say I want a big flat thingy here. Instead of like keep on hitting source and clicking things, we can go ahead and hit C, highlight everything, right click to take off that option. We're going to have to come back over here. This is what I don't like about this, is to move things around. We have we want to rotate. Now, if you want to do all of it at the same time, we have a transform button that will give you all the options of rotating and moving. But I tell you what, the UI on this is so squeezed together that a lot of times you'll hit the wrong thing sometimes. So I like to be specific with what I'm doing. So if I'm just moving things, I want to move them. If I'm rotating, I want to rotate it. Sometimes I get very nitpicky with having to go back and forth, and I will use the transform button. But say like you're going to move the green one, you'll accidentally hit this white one, and you'll mess up, and that's not what we want. So I suggest just going to move and rotate until you get comfortable with things. Okay, so we want a floor in here. So instead of like going one by one and adding things, we can actually just duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Alt-D, and then I'm going to hit right-click I'm selected right now. See, I'm just moving. I hit Alt-D, and I've copied everything, but I'm in some free-form move, and that's not what I want. So anytime you're like highlighted something or you want it to go back, we're just going to hit the right-click button, right button on the mouse. Boom, and that gives you this right here. Let's zoom in and see what's going to happen. I'm going to move this one over now. Okay, let's Alt-D this again. Alt-D, right-click, move it over. All right, so this is going to save you time with a lot of different things. Highlight everything. Alt-D, right-click, move it over. Line it up. You can get in really close. You can also see your XYZs. I'm not doing anything artistic and building anything, so I'm just demonstrating on what to do. You're going to have to take these methods and perfect them to your own style. Alt-D, we'll move things over. Okay, so now we got something going on. We got this big pad going on. This is actually pretty huge. If we're in the game, you know that this is big and that you're going to be on this big football field of floor panels here. Okay. Now we can highlight all this stuff again, and you've got your rotations. Let's make a box. Okay. So let's go back into this here, and let's go Alt-D. Now we're starting to get to, we have a lot of vertices down there, and we've got 960 objects, which you can only have, you can see how many objects you have. No, we have 1,922. So 3,000 is your limit, and we're getting up there. We've got some complexities in here too as well, with how many vertices and things like that. But floors are pretty easy. They're not that complicated. So we can rotate this, and you can look over on the right. So we want a perfect 90-degree angle on that rotation. And over here on the right, you can see that our y-axis is at 90.8. I can get it pretty close, and we can fine-tune that by hitting this little button here. You can also write them into, but for some reason, when you have multiple items selected, sometimes that would not work correctly. And I'm not exactly sure why. I'm not really good with the XYZ axes, but let's just say I wanted to write this, and let's see if it messes it up. So let's go 55 and hit enter. All right, see what happened? I hit 55 and enter, and all it did was change this little guy down here. So that's why I don't like to type this in. If you're working with one piece, typing it in over here can work, which I don't know why it does that. But I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Z, and that fixed it. You see how that little piece went back in there? This little piece on the right down here. So writing it in for multiple highlighted pieces doesn't seem to work. Maybe it's in tools. I don't know. Let's see. No, view. Let's go ahead and see if that's something in here is changing. I don't see anything in view changing. So let's go ahead and right click and get that back to the way it was. All right, so we've got this sort of box going on. I'm going to go ahead and hit the Move tab, and we're going to go ahead and copy this again. So Alt-D, it's copied it. I hit right-click, and I'm moving over. You can see that the Blender is starting to get a little bit glitchy right now because we are at 3,000 objects. So what we're going to do is go ahead and slim this down a little bit because we don't need a box that big. I'm going to go ahead and click off of something over here, and because we're using floors and floors aren't that complicated, our vertices are not that bad, so we're doing well. But our piece count is way up there in Blender. Even on my strong computer, I've got an 8700K with dual 1080s. This is starting to get a little bit glitchy. So I'm going to highlight some things here, and we're going to slim this box down a little bit here. I'm going to change the angle and try to get it perfect. You can scroll with your middle wheel while you're doing this and get fine-tune. Try to fine-tune that line. Every dot that you're going to highlight is usually in the middle of the piece. We accidentally have this highlighted too, but I'm not doing a perfect box here. We're not building something perfect, so I've deleted that. And we still want to make this box. So let's go ahead and click on this. Remember before you start messing with everything that your focal points and things that you're moving is based on what you have clicked. So always remember where your object is at, okay? Which you just seen that I accidentally clicked. I accidentally deleted this when I was deleting all that other stuff because I failed to click on this and do that. I could have Alt-D'd it and started all over, but we are not getting nitpicky here. We're just learning methods. I'm not making some kind of perfectionist based base over here. So we're going to copy this bottom piece down because we are just wanting to make a box here, and the box is going to help me show you some secret sauce stuff here with the object tab that's at the top there. So we're going to Alt-D this. We have some other things highlighted up there too. I'm not being super particular about things. You can see that we have brought up some extra pieces. I don't really care. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to go ahead and Alt-D this again. And we're going to go over to rotate, and we're going to spin this around until it's at 90 again. Or 180. Boom. All right. You can see that I have my 180 degrees over there. Again, this is kind of sloppy. See, I'm sloppy. I've got all these pieces here. Again, that's not where we're not doing perfectionism. We're just doing methods and teaching you methods. Box is not even lined up correctly. Who cares? I'm not Alt-D again. And let's move this guy over. All right, so we have this little box now. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and move this over. All right, so we got our box here. We can go ahead and hit C, highlight everything, and we're going to learn some things about object mode. So object over here, we got some tools that we can do and some shortcuts with them. Let's see here. Object mode. I feel like things have changed in here. Convert, quick effects, body, animation. This just doesn't seem like the same UI that I had down at the bottom. Oh, it's at the top. They're backwards. So on the bottom, it goes from the bottom. Okay, I see what happened. I'm like, usually it's down here. So when I click it down here, like the menu tab is in the reverse order. Like I said, everything up here, everything that was up here used to be down here for me. Like I have to get used to this again. Okay, so these are going to be some pretty cool tools in here. And you're just going to have to play with this and things like that. But I want to show you what some of this can do and how you can get some really unique results, especially now that we have a box, or you make a triangle, or whatever it is, this is some really good experimental areas to go, okay, I just made something wicked. Okay, so we have move and rotate and scale. We have all these things over here anyway, so that's not something that you need to really to be really impressed about. But to sphere, which could be Shift Alt S, or we can just click it here. So now we can click sphere. Oh, I just lost it. Go ahead and click sphere. Give it a second. Now, see how it's transforming? Boom. We just made a ball. Wicked, right? You know? Now you guys might be seeing how we have just have made the Death Star and other things like that. So we've got this, but it's not very done right. You can see that there's some pieces and gaps and stuff like that. So this is definitely not how we made the Death Star, which I'll actually show you here in a minute. But I just thought that was cool. This is some cool effects that you can do. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control Z, and we're going to get this thing back to a box. And it takes a while because we have a lot of objects selected. We have 3,273 objects selected right at this moment. Go back into objects and go back into transform. Our next thing is shear. Now shear is a weird tool, and shear is going to be decided on where the cursor is at. You see this little cursor right here, this little guy. Let's go ahead and just start doing this. I'm over explaining things and getting myself confused almost here. All right, so let's go back into shear. Hit that and give it a second. Shearing. All right, we're doing some weird twisting and turning things. All right, and that can be based off of where your global and local and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and let's go back into global and local right now too. So I am in global. Like say if I want to spin while I'm in global, we're going to spin this whole box globally. It's going to take a minute because we have so many things highlighted. All right. So we're spinning it globally and it's turning on its axis, whatever. So if we hit local and spin, each piece is going to spin locally. Each little section. And that's not exactly what we want, but at the same time as that being said, you can get some weird results with what happens with this. See how things are going crazy? Everything has these local axis, and as you're turning it, you can see it. Now, this is going to act differently depending on what you have. I have so many different things chosen right now, so it's doing everything locally as a whole. So that's going to change. Like, so if we just had one thing set, we had one line selected out of all this. So say the box wasn't here, and we just had a line here, and we chose that. They would all just tilt up locally. We'll get back into that and show you later. I just kind of want to just kind of touch on this, on how global and local acts in different settings and different ways that you're using it. So. All right, we're back to our box and we're into object modes. This is more of like advanced stuff and where you're going to get really cool ideas. Bend is a Shift W. And now we're into it. Now it's going to bend. We have some shearing. This is the one that is going to be decided, and the effect is going to change depending on where this cursor is. So if we wanted it to bend a little bit differently, let's go ahead and take that off. We can put our, we have to go up here. It used to be like that. We're going to have to change our cursor to over here, and then we'll highlight everything again. So for bend, it was Shift W, right? You see how it's bending now from a different axis, depending on where that little cursor was at. Let's go ahead and put that there. Let's go ahead and hit cursor again. Oop. Control Z that. Okay, so I am changing it. So here's the cursor here again. The shortcut for that was Shift W, and it's going to start acting differently depending on where that piece is at. So you're just going to have to play with that. I've gotten some really cool things out of it. I made a dandelion that was blowing in the wind by doing this, and quite a few other tips and tricks that I've done with that. So that's cool. Let's go back into transform. And the last one is push and pull, which is just going to give you another set of really abstract things depending on what shape you do and what you have. Push and pull is really cool. So let's go ahead and click on it. Give it a second. Now it imploded. We can explode this thing. We're pushing it out now, and now we've got this huge ball of stuff, and this is going to look crazy in the game. Remember, each one of these pieces are a floor piece that you can stand on. So imagine how the size of this in the game is going to be. This is massive, you know. And then now we're going to implode this thing, and you can see it that once it gets to the center point of its implosion, it's going to re-explode into another whole dimensional thing. This is where I made some of my that's fucking really cool, dude. This is where I made some of my vector equilibriums and vortexes and things like that. Like I said, with different shapes, you're going to get different results out of those tools that are in object mode. I'm actually going to keep this. So that is wicked looking, man. I really like that. But they're not balls, though. If you see, we just made ball shapes out of pieces that are not snapped together. But I'm still very impressed with that, and I like to see what it looked like in the game. So anyway, actually, we can actually save that, and I'll show you how to save a preset real quick. So we have the circle highlight, and I'll highlight that and come over to the No Man's Sky Blender add-on tool, and we're going to go up to where's it at? Base and properties, or is it in tools? Oh, here it is. It's at the bottom of build. It says save as preset, so I can go ahead and hit that. Everything I have highlighted right now is going to be saved as a preset, and I'm just going to label it AAAA. Check this out. That way it shows up first, and I go, any projects that I'm working on, I usually type AAA, and I'll save it like that. Okay, so now we have that saved. Where are presets? They're going to be in your presets tab right here. So you see that I just did that. I have all these other things in here, and I've got my AAA. Check this out. Okay, we're going to talk about presets in a little bit later, because presets can be a little bit tricky, and they don't come out in form of where you can manipulate them in Blender. When I save a base as a preset, the base is actually going to come up into the game as one solid piece that I can't mess with. So if you're messing with presets, what you do is you add the preset to your game or into Blender, then you hit export, and then go put it back in your file, go into the game, and then come back in here and import the file again, and that way it'll come up as individual pieces. That's another tip and trick that I think some people get lost on. They're like, I can't do anything with this, you know. But if you go back into the game and then come back out, then you can manipulate your preset. It won't be a preset then; it'll be a Blender project file. All right, so we got this guy here. Let's back into object mode, because this is where you're going to get all the cool builds from. I mean, this is where you're going to separate from what you learned in Charlie's builds, and then you're going to get into some abstract stuff and you know, doing something different than what everybody else normally sees. So yeah, we've gone move textures, align, transform. You're not going to mess with any of that, I don't think. Let's randomize transform. That's not going to do anything. Not doing anything. It's that's for other tools in Blender that we don't use for No Man's Sky. So the next thing, set origin, we're not messing with that. Mirror is another cool thing. So we have XYZs, local and global. We've already talked about what those things do. So what we're going to do is we can change this to mirror. So like, let's say, let's go global on this, and let's change the X global mirror on this. Let's just go through each one of them and see what it does to this this crazy looking ball thing that we have here and how it's going to affect it. And you're gonna be able to see what that would do to any other item that you have. This is a little more complex. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in so we can actually see it better, why it's happening. So we're in mirror, we're in global. We're gonna check out and see what this one does. Probably gonna take a minute because we have a lot of things. So it mirrored it and it flipped it over. It flipped it over on its side. It mirrored it over this way. Let's go ahead and Control Z this. And boom, it mirrored it that way. That was globally. Remember, global is all of it together, not locally. Now, when we start flipping things that are this complex in a local setting, it's going to be a totally different game. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's check out Y and see what it does. Boom, it flipped it on its Y-axis, and it mirrored it anyway. We're going to Control Z that. Go back in here to mirror, and Z. Boom, it flipped it, mirrored it anyway. Pretty neat. Control Z, get back to where we were. And now this is going to be probably more interesting as into the local stuff. So it's going to mirror things locally. So let's see what it does for the Y. Now, every piece locally flipped around. So you can see that each individual piece has mirrored itself in the opposite mirrored version of itself on that axis. Let's go ahead and Control Z that. Go back into mirror Y. Flip things all outwards. So the ones that were flipped the other way are now flipped outwards and mirrored the other way. So very cool stuff here. I think we don't really need to go into much further on that. I don't think so. I really like this. Maybe maybe this will be the one that we go back into the game with. Back into objects. We got mirror, clear. We're not going to be doing any of that. I don't think we're going to mess with any of this stuff. I mean, you guys can go in here and try it. I think I found all this stuff by accident. So, I mean, once I found those things and everything else that I know, I can pretty much build what I want within the limits of the game and the physics that we're using in here. We're already breaking the rules of the physics of the game by just coming into Blender, because obviously you can't build any crap like this. What else? We have scale. Where's that at? That's here. Or no, where's that? Scale, which is also S. So if you have everything highlighted on here, we have S. We can scale, hit S, and we can start blowing this up. Now we're inside of this thing. That's crazy, right? So we just made this thing super huge. We're inside of it, and this is what it's going to be like inside. So this is pretty neat looking, huh? It's really huge. It was already big to begin with, and now it's even double big. Some of it's underneath the ground. Okay, so we got this. It's so big that we can't even see what's happening around it. Let's go ahead and scale that back down. So S was it, and we can go over here to underneath rotate. We have scale, and it will give me a round circle over everything. Remember, I have so many pieces highlighted up that it's kind of being a little glitchy and buggy. You can see that we are actually below the ground. Now, if you ever want to see where your orientation is at on things, we can go back into and turn the base flag eyeball on over here, and the eyeball is right there down. The base flag is right here, and if we exported this right now and we went into the world, we're not going to see any of this. It's all underground. So what we need to do is move this back up. And again, since we have so many pieces highlighted, the slower it is. And I've gone into just testing Blender out with 22,000 pieces. And just remember, it's going to take some time. And I've got a pretty strong computer, so it's not going to get too much faster unless you got something kind of a beast. And even then, I don't think it's going to be really a whole lot faster. I mean, these are complicated. All right, so what else I wanted to show you real quick is maybe snapping. So we're going to pull this off to the side because I want to see this when we get in there. We're over 3,000 pieces though. So I think I need to slim some of this down. We'll be able to see it in the game anyway. We're not going to try to upload anything, so I don't really care about all that. I'm going to hit Shift and my middle mouse button to reposition us back over, and I'm going to click on the base flag, which is going to give me stop having me access to all that stuff over there. And let's come back over here. We were talking about these little pieces here that I wanted to play with. So we're going to highlight. Let's just touch them because we remember we have our base flag out now too, and I was just highlighted on that. So before I touched anything, and I'll show you right here, right now. So we can highlight those two pieces, and then if we highlight the base flag, did you see how all our options just disappeared? We can't mess with anything anymore. I can't move anything, can't do anything because that base flag is locked into place, and it just overrode all of our options and our manipulations. So you can't mess with that base flag at the same time. That's why I tell you to turn it off. I turn it back on for references and for snapping purposes only, and that's it. Let's go back over here to these guys and highlight them now. See how the arrows came back? Now we're going to move them over here a little closer to our base flag. Okay, so I'm going to hit the Shift and center button on my mouse to come back over. Okay. We're going to zoom in, hit the Shift. We're going to kind of zoom in on this base thing here. We're in such a big mode right now. That thing is huge. Okay, let's talk about snapping. Whatever you have highlighted first is going to be the piece that you snap to. Now you want to select multiple things. You hit Shift and you start selecting. You can't snap multiple things at a time. I'm just showing you how to select a few things. So like if you wanted to delete certain things out of your base, you can select certain things like that, and that's how you get to like fine-tune surgical things. So that's not what we're doing right now, but I'm just showing you some shortcuts on the keyboard. So for snapping purposes, say we want to snap this piece onto this over here and have it on the global grid perfectly. We're going to select that. That's your master select for snapping, and this will be your slave select for snapping. And then we come over here to the tab in the UI on the right over here, and we'll hit snap. Boom. Now we have that plant perfectly snapped into place right there. Now, I don't know. That's the toxic plant. That's the one that I want. You can see how we get a reading of what the place is, the part that we're using right over here. Whatever you have selected is going to be over there. So we have a toxic plant. We have a base rad plant. That's where the part information is. It's also over here on the right-hand side. You can see it here. Okay. And then same thing with the XYZ. I always click this little square box for the XYZs. Sometimes it disappears depending on how many things you highlight. I don't know why or what the reason is behind that, but sometimes this is not an option. I can't tell you why. We haven't had that problem since the whole time we've been building today, so we're not going to be worried about that. This is that other plant. This is the wriggling plant that I wanted to do something with. And like I told you, the reason why I put these down in the very start of the video was I wanted to show you that they were going to be represented by just a block instead of actually seeing what it is. Everything else that's in here is going to be represented correctly. We can check out anything. Let's say check out a decoration. Let's say there is some other trees. We can add a plant in here, and you'll see that that plant is represented correctly in the game. So let's go ahead and delete that. You just have to look at things in here and go there. That's a barnacle. So, you're going to be able to break the rules of everything with actually adding underwater pieces and stuff like that. So you'll see some of my builds that have the underwater doors, and the moon pools is another big, really cool one because it has that super glow. So we take that moon pool, bring it up, and then we can scale that up either by coming over here to scale, or we can hit S and make that thing super big. And the moon pools have that glow that come down, so that's always cool, right? Let's go ahead and stick that moon pool up here, just to look at something cool. Because I said we were not going to build anything, but And this is not something this is not like a final art piece. This is not something I'm very proud of, but I thought that little piece, this little thing, whatever the heck that is just cool looking. I just want to see it. This might be too big. It might be glitchy in the game. Who knows? We're experimenting, and I just want to see what's going on. All right, so we're going to come back over here. We had something that I wanted to do with that plant. I want to delete this little box here first. And remember to come over here to the base flag and turn that base flag off because, like I said, that is one of the big things that will be a boo-boo in the game if you do that. Now, when you snap something like that, especially to the base flag, the reason why I like to snap to the base flag because the base flag is orientated globally. It's positioned up and down and left and right and XYZ properly within the game. So this plant right now is sitting up. Since I can't see it, I don't know how it is. But since I snapped it to the base flag, I know that up is up on that plant, down is down, and everything else. Now, that plant was tall, and it had these wriggling-looking things in it. And I want to make some kind of, I don't know, something like a round, weird thing. So what we're going to do is going to make something here real quick. And I'm going to go into Rotate, because that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to duplicate this by Alt-D. Alt-D, and we're going to spin this around. And we're going to try to get it exactly all the way around here. So you can see on the right, I don't know, I'm going to click that again. We can see over there on the right, it was already at 90, right? Depending on how you want to spin it, but I want to spin it with the x-axis. All right, so they're 270 there. And we're going to take that and pull it down. Maybe kind of do that. Now I'm going to highlight both of these. And I'm going to hit an Alt-D again. And go back into Rotate. And spin these around like this. And I'm going to highlight everything again. And Alt-D it one more time. And spin it this way. And I think I can probably just get rid of the double ones on each side because we already had ones that were up there. See how I can't just like pick anything else like that? That's because all these circles are in the way. If you get into that position, you need to come up in here to cursor and select. So I want one of those boxes gone. I'm going to delete it because there's already one there. And I'm going to pick this one down here again, and I'm going to delete it because there's already one there. I'm going to highlight these things again one more time with Control-C. Not Control-C, but C brings up your circle for highlighting everything. And then I'm going to hit S and just kind of scale those out a little bit. And since we're looking close to the ground, I think, let's go ahead and hit the Shift in the middle button. No, we're floating above. We'll be all right. So that's that right there. We learned a lot of secrets and tips and tricks. We're at an hour and 13 minutes already. I think I've covered how to get in here, how to navigate around, a lot of my tips and secrets that I do. I will probably make some other videos. This is kind of an introductory video, which I think I probably already kind of overcomplicated with terminology and things like that. So I should have done this in increments, but I don't get paid to do this. This is a side project for me, and I just do this because I want to see the art that you guys get. So it's up to you to dive in here and watch this video several times. Like I said, this is what I do when I'm not doing my audio stuff. I play No Man's Sky and Blender to have silence and to rinse out listening to music and mastering music all day. So that's where we're at. So now we have this here, and we want to get it back into the game, right? Let's go ahead and hit export. But basically what export is going to do is copy everything over to your copy pad, your copy and paste pad. All right, so we're going to hit export, and we're going to, I'm just going to close it out right now. I'm not worried about saving this. I did save that little piece as a preset so I can look at it later. I'm just going to hit exit and I'm going to hit discard changes. That brings us back to our No Man's Sky save editor. Don't touch anything yet. We're just going to touch the top of the box here. I just moved it over, but I wouldn't touch anything yet. Everything is still highlighted under our base 11 demo base. This is the same base that we started with in the very beginning. And to override that, we're going to just make sure that we're hovered over this and make sure that everything still is up there highlighted and everything. And we're going to hit delete. Now that we've deleted it, we're going to hit Control V. Now Control V just pasted all that new information. If you notice that now we have this, we don't have 3 parts or how many ever parts we started with anymore. And we have our timestamps and our position. So in here, don't go messing around in here, but I'll just show you real quick is, you know, our base flag is at the center position. You know, you can see everything is at 0, 0, 0 and things like that. Up is pretty close and everything like that. Everything else, every single piece, this is just one part. This whole piece right here is just the base flag and its vector position within that square limits of our base that we had set down. And then we have, we can see our toxic plants. It goes in order by how, when we added them to our file. And then the rest of it's a bunch of floor pieces. See floor pieces, floor pieces. We've got, you know, 3,000 floor pieces in there. So the moon pool was one of the last things that we messed with. There's the moon pool. All right, so we don't touch anything in here. Don't mess with anything in there. I just want to show you kind of what this all means. And you know, when you get comfortable with all this, there's some things in here that you can do and manipulate things. But that's a very highly caution you to start messing with that if you don't know what you're doing. So to get this thing saved, I'm just going to click on 10 over here. Or you can hit exit out, but this is kind of the way I like to do it. I'll just click over here. It says adjacent has changed. Do you wish to apply these changes? Yes, we do. I purposely change things that I know what I'm doing. I'm going to exit out of here. Now we're going to exit out of the main UI for the No Man's Sky tool. We're going to go ahead and exit that. It's going to say save again. Yes, please. Going to take a minute, shut down, and we're going to exit out, and let's go into the game and see what happened in here, man. So I hope that this video has kind of helped you and getting things set up with a new UI. It can be very daunting and intimidating. Blender is a very complicated program with a very steep learning curve. So take your time. Don't mess anything up. Back your files up. Watch Charlie Banks's videos if you haven't already, and get familiar with everything. I'm going to be doing some other videos on my specialty building skills and some other techniques. I was just kind of showing you some methods today. Even though we just went through some methods, I think I really covered some very advanced things too as well with the object mode and things like that. But realistically, I want you to retain you know, the global and local and the base flag. Don't mess with a base flag. Presets, saving a preset. Also, you know, if you're using a preset that you want to add the preset and then come back into the game and then do your copy and paste from the No Man's Sky save editor back into the game. I'm kind of really curious to see what's going on. Okay, so that's that plant that we used. And remember we copied, that's the last thing that we did pretty much. And we copied it and we spun it around. Not all of it is showing up though. Oh yeah, it is. So we just made a really super cool thing here. I knew that was going to come out really cool. That's why I wanted to use that plant. These were the plants that were represented by boxes in the game. And I just think that it's so super cool. Let's take a photo together on this because I just think that's effing wicked, dude. Especially with that backdrop in the back. Let's go ahead and just take us a picture here because that's super cool. All right, guys. So we get to see the fruit of our loins here. I think it's going to be super cool when we get up inside of this thing and take a look around. And remember, this is not going to be uploadable. We're well past the limits of the game. Not well past it. But everything's rendering fine. This is over 3,000 pieces. I'm sitting, it's definitely heavy because of the moon pool. I am sitting at 40 frames, but this is super huge right here. This is a lot of computer power, and I'm pretty sure not only am I running this at Ultra, but I'm also recording on OBS at the same time. I've got my mic and audio going through, so my computer is doing a lot of stuff at the moment. So, yeah, man, definitely really cool with what we've done. I'm very impressed with this, and I'm probably going to make something out of that. So, I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys. Hit like and subscribe. It's not really, this is just kind of a side project of mine, so it doesn't really matter. But I am DJ Krios at Steam. You can add me there. We can have fun. Hope everything is good for you guys, and that you learned something and picked something up from this. And I'll see you next time. Bye.